Good morning. These are certainly strange times that we're living in, and I really wish that I could be with you this morning. In fact, I really wish we could be together worshipping, because one of the great blessings for me is to come and worship with you guys. So I'm glad to be speaking to you, but really sorry that we can't be together at this time. I think that's one of the things that I'm missing the most at this time, and that's us getting together and worshipping. You can hear sermons online, but you can't really experience the presence of God in the same way that we know when we worship together. So I'm really missing that, and I'm looking forward to the day when God's going to restore that, and I'm looking forward to the day when I can come back and share with you in person. As I've been praying for you, I've sensed God has given me 3 scriptures for you, and they're all from Isaiah. The first one is in Isaiah 43 verses 18 and 19. Remember not the former things, nor consider the things of old. Behold, I'm doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. A wonderful promise for the people that Isaiah was speaking to at the time. People, if you remember, were actually in exile, in captivity in Babylon. And God's saying, the New Living Translation translates it like this: forget all that. It's nothing compared to what I'm going to do. For Israel, exiled in Babylon, what they remembered was their deliverance out of Egypt, their deliverance through the Red Sea when they walked through on dry ground with the waters piled up either side. And as they got through and Pharaoh's armies chased them, the water came back and engulfed them and destroyed Pharaoh's armies. They would have remembered the years too in the wilderness, the years walking round in circles, with the promise of something more to come that hadn't yet been realised. And they too, of course, would have remembered, I guess, the excitement as a nation entered the promise that God had given them. But now they were again in captivity. You see, they weren't being asked to forget God's goodness, which was a promise that they weren't being asked to forget God's goodness. They were just being asked to remember that God's promise was for greater things for them. They were being invited to forget their sins and their past mistakes. When I first came to Scotland nearly 30 years ago, ECF, as you were then called, was one of the flagship churches, not just in Edinburgh, but throughout Scotland. You were known for your worship and the presence of God, the freedom that you experienced. You were known for the prophetic words that came from your community. You were known for your social action. You were known for your evangelism and church planting. In many ways, at that time, you were way, way ahead of where many other churches were in the UK. Sandy Miller, I heard him say on one occasion that no blessing goes uncontested. And over the past 30 years, you've made mistakes. You've known wilderness years, both collectively and individually. You've known what it is to have God's blessings contested. And I believe that God's saying to you, forget all that. I'm doing a new thing. And when God says, forget the former things, I'm doing a new thing, it's not because it was all bad. It's because new things will be so much better than the old. Just as in Nehemiah's time, when Nehemiah used the rubble from the ruined walls that were broken down and left destroyed, he used that same rubble as the building material for the new walls. And I believe that's true for Community Church Edinburgh, and it's true for you individually. It's called redemption. God will use the rubbish of past mistakes and the hurts that you've experienced to rebuild the new you. And in doing so, he will use the comfort which you have received so that you can comfort others who are experiencing the same afflictions that you're experiencing. The second verse that God's given me from Isaiah for you this morning, I believe, is Isaiah 57 verse 7. I love this verse. How beautiful on the mountains are the feet of him who brings good news, the good news of peace and salvation, who says to Zion, your God reigns. That is good news. We are good news people. We worship a God who reigns. And one of the consequences of this crisis is that we are reaching people, I think, as churches, not just us at St John's, but you at CCE, all churches, I think, are reaching people they would have never reached before. On Palm Sunday, we had over 1,000 viewings on our website. Now, some of them might have been Rupert just seeing how we were getting on and doing things, but many of them were non-church goers, people that actually admitted in their comments as they were engaging with us in the comments that they don't normally go to church, but they were really glad to be with us. How beautiful are the feet that brings good news. The gospel still works today and will be working in new ways. And I believe that God is saying to you at Community Church Edinburgh, you've got beautiful feet. You're going to be good news bringers. You're going to carry the good news. Wherever you tread will not just be holy ground, but it'll be ground where good news will be shared. The third verse that I would like to share from you is, well, it's slightly longer than a verse. It's a few verses, and it's in Isaiah 61. And it says this: "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of prison to those who are bound, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour, and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, to grant those who mourn in Zion, to give them a beautiful headdress instead of ashes, the oil of gladness instead of mourning, a garment of praise instead of a faint spirit, that they may be called oaks of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he may be glorified. They shall build up the ancient ruins, they shall raise up the former devastations, and they shall repair the ruined cities, the devastations of many generations." It's interesting, Jesus in Luke chapter 4, at the very start of his ministry, quotes from Isaiah 61 verses 1 and 2 at the very start of his ministry, but he actually omitted the verse, the day of the Lord's vengeance. He omitted that verse. And I've often wondered why he did that. Jesus kind of, altering scripture, or was he just leaving bits out? Well, I'll leave you to decide that, but I just want to reframe this in a way that our gospel is good news. You see, too often as evangelicals, we've preached a gospel that has been a gospel about getting saved from the wrath of an angry God. You see, sin is real, and people do need to be set free from it, which is exactly what Jesus came to do. He died, and he rose again, and he conquered sin and death, and that's good news. And it's good news not just for a select few chosen people. It's good news for all people, not just the chosen few. But the verse that I really felt was for you at Community Church was verse 4. "They will rebuild the ancient ruins. They shall raise up the former devastation. They shall repair the ruined cities, the devastation of many generations." I believe that this is what God is calling Community Church Edinburgh to now. I believe that God's calling that. Do you not see it? It's already begun. He's already beginning to open up things for you. The gospel is good news, and not just for those who go to church. But what does it look like for Community Church Edinburgh to rebuild the ancient ruins, to repair the cities that were once destroyed? Well, in many ways it's not that different to the things that you did in the past. But it will be different, because the water that once destroyed will bring life. Wildernesses that were once places of captivity will become, and once badlands, will become fruitful places. There will no longer be a place where you go round and round in circles. I believe that God is making straight a path for you to walk on. And I believe that God is not only inviting you to walk on that path, but he's inviting you to invite others to join you in sharing this good news. God is doing a new thing. When I spoke at Church Edinburgh about 3 years ago now, it might have been longer, I think. I remember God very clearly gave me a prophetic word about snowdrops, and I saw it. It was snowdrops. I love snowdrops. You know, they're a sign of spring. They're a sign of new life. They're a sign that the cold, dark days are over. They're a promise of something new. As I was praying for you this morning, I just had a real sense that God is doing a new thing. That actually, that spring is now passing. That you're entering into a new season of fruitfulness. I don't know who thought of the name for the conference, Spring Harvest. It was a great name. But as I've been praying for Community Church Edinburgh, I believe that God has given me a word, summer harvest. And I believe that that's the season that you're entering as a church. It's a season of harvest. It's a season where you remember the things that you once did. A season where God will renew your worship, where prophetic words will be released from you and among you. It's a season where you'll remember the social action that you were once engaged in, and that will be renewed, and you will touch all parts of the city with good news, because you're good news people. It's a season where you remember the evangelism that you were once engaged with. You remember the fact that you once planted churches all around the Lothians. And I believe that God's calling you to that again, because you're good news people. You see, the winter is over, the spring has come, but now it's time for the summer harvest. And I really pray God's blessing upon you, and thank you for listening to this message. God bless you. Amen.